Well, good evening, everyone. And, well, what a nice full house. My name is Daryl Moore. I'm the Dean of the College of the Arts and Communication here at William Paterson University. And I'm happy to be here at the podium and to welcome you all to this milestone event on the campus of Willie P. We're excited and delighted. I know that rhymes. I wasn't trying to be funny, but we are really, truly excited and delighted to host the first annual WPSPJ award ceremony featuring the inductions to the New Jersey Journalism Hall of Fame. That's a big deal for us. That's a big deal for us. So to get right into the evening's events, I'm going to introduce Miriam Ascarelli, Vice President of the New Jersey Society of Professional Journalists, and also Nicholas Hirshon, Journalism Professor here at William Paterson University.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nick Hirshon, and I'm a journalism professor here at William Paterson University and the founder and advisor of our campus chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists.
And I'm Miriam Ascarelli. I'm a journalism professor at New Jersey Institute of Technology in Newark and vice president of our SPJ chapter here in New Jersey.
And tonight we would like to welcome you to Hobart Hall, the home of the William Paterson University Communication Department, for the WPSPJ award ceremony featuring the inaugural inductions into the New Jersey Journalism Hall of Fame.
So we're gathering here tonight to celebrate journalism on this campus and throughout the state of New Jersey.
More than a decade ago, I signed up to become a lifetime member of the Society of Professional Journalists. Back then, I was a reporter for the New York Daily News, running around the borough of Queens to cover community board meetings and car accidents and the rest of the chaos that happens every day in the largest city on the globe. I knew then that joining the Society of Professional Journalists would make me a better reporter. Now I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with the journalism students at William Paterson. I'm so glad that tonight we can celebrate the work of our students and the people who have helped our chapter grow. I especially wish to recognize two people in the audience tonight who have been critical to our chapter's success: Dr. Rob Quick, the chairperson of the Communication Department, and Dean Daryl Moore of the College of Arts and Communication.
Tonight is also special because it's the occasion to celebrate the launch of the New Jersey Journalism Hall of Fame. And a word about that. The New Jersey Journalism Hall of Fame was created by NJSPJ as part of our effort to create an archive of New Jersey journalism history. So we basically assigned ourselves a mini reporting project that we hope to replicate on an annual basis for years to come. Our goal is to honor the outstanding journalists who were born in New Jersey or moved here. And each of the 5 people who are being inducted here tonight were chosen because they met one of 3 criteria. Either they had a great career in journalism in New Jersey or elsewhere, they broke barriers that paved the way for others, or they made a significant contribution to our chapter.
As a board member of NJSPJ and our resident historian, I want to make clear that the Hall of Fame is not the only way our New Jersey chapter is trying to stitch together a narrative about the history of journalism in the Garden State. In 2016, we launched our State Registry of Historic Sites in Journalism, and we'd like to tell you a little bit about them.
So far, there are 3 sites on our list. One is the Red Bank home of T. Thomas Fortune, who in the late 19th century and early 20th century was the co-owner and editor of the New York Age, one of the most widely read African-American newspapers of his day.
And then there's the historic Hunterdon County Courthouse and the Union Hotel, both in downtown Flemington. Back in 1935, Flemington was the epicenter for what was dubbed the trial of the century, the trial of Bruno Hauptmann, a German immigrant who was found guilty of first-degree murder of the infant son of the famed aviator Charles Lindbergh. People today still debate whether Hauptmann was framed, but what's incontrovertible is the historic significance of both sites, the courthouse where the trial took place, and the Union Hotel across the street, where the press set up camp. I was proud last year to write the text for a plaque that we unveiled at the Union Hotel.
The most recent site to be added to our list of historic sites is the Lakehurst Air Station. That's where radio journalist Herbert Morrison broadcast his famous account of the spectacular in-flight explosion of the Hindenburg Zeppelin, a massive blimp carrying 97 people on board. 36 people were killed in what marked the end of dirigible travel in the 20th century. Morrison's emotional words, "Oh, the humanity," is one of the most famous examples of live radio reporting.
In other words, there's a lot of great journalism history here in New Jersey. And that's why tonight's program seeks to look forward and backward at the same time. We'll be alternating between looking at the work done by student journalists here at William Paterson and the careers of people who are role models for our profession. And now to kick things off, I'd like to introduce the president of the William Paterson chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists, Maria Zuniga.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this very special event tonight. Tonight, our chapter will be honoring Friends of WPSPJ, who have dedicated so much of their talent and time to us, the journalism students of William Paterson. Our chapter was founded in the fall 2017 semester by Dr. Nick Hirshon, who now serves as our advisor, with the support of Dr. Rob Quick, the chair of the communication department. I had the honor of being selected as one of WPSPJ's 11 founding members. I served as vice president of our chapter in its first year. Our goal from the beginning was to strengthen the journalism culture at William Paterson. WPSPJ is an organization open to all journalism students, print, broadcast, online, and social media. Our first step was introducing a discussion series with professional journalists named The Reality Check. With the help of Dr. Hirshon, professional journalists have come to campus to give us advice on the news industry. This guest speaker series has allowed students to ask professional-specific questions. In the first year, we had a total of 8 professional journalists come and speak. Another core aspect of our chapter is continuing conversations about the news industry outside of the classroom. Dr. Hirshon has made it possible for our chapter to tour newsrooms and shadow professional journalists. WPSPJ has also attended the Society of Professional Journalists Region 1 Conference in Philadelphia in 2018 and in Boston in 2019, where we had the opportunity to attend workshops and networking events. In April 2018, after 8 months of operating as an organization, WPSPJ was approved by the national president of the Society of Professional Journalists as the newest SPJ chapter. I know this achievement because although our first year consisted of many successes, there were also many obstacles. At that time, I was newly elected WPSPJ president for the upcoming year. This achievement gave our chapter the motivation and enthusiasm to continue engaging student journalists. Today, our chapter has the privilege to co-host this event with the New Jersey Society of Professional Journalists. This wouldn't be possible without the endless commitment of Dr. Hirshon, Dr. Quick, the communication department, and John Enslin, the president of the New Jersey Society of Professional Journalists. In the past year, our chapter has evolved. We have grown, we have established new goals, and tonight we commence a new tradition. We have made such progress over the past year and a half. At this time, I would ask that you please direct your attention to the monitor behind me to learn more about the work of WPSPJ.
The first year was like a feeling out process. I was a secretary at the beginning, and I was honored to have such an important position on the board. We had a good first year. We started some events like the Hobart Reality Check.
The journalists that we've had come in as part of the Reality Check series can provide an industry perspective that I can't give because they're currently working in journalism. So they can provide a perspective of, I was just on an assignment earlier today and this is the challenge that I was facing.
I think the reality checks are a really cool thing that WPSPJ does because it's not often that we get the opportunity to talk with and hear from like real life professionals who offer insight into exactly what goes on in the professions. They always offer advice and like valuable insight that I otherwise would not have been able to get.
For example, the reality checks, we had Andrew Rosenthal recently. It's just something really special to see a real journalist tell you about real instances that you have to deal with and how we handled it.
It also raises the visibility of our journalism program. So when you have the Reality Check series, not only is it going on YouTube and we're tweeting it out, but we put it on Instagram, it goes out into the community on Channel 76 in Wayne. So maybe if there's a high school student out there or their parents who's thinking about where should I send my kid to go to school, if they want to be a journalist, well, look at all these events. We're having stuff every month, and that's just the Reality Check series.
Shadowing Dennis at the Devils game was a great experience, just getting to see his process, how he prepares, showing up a couple hours early, getting a couple pregame stories in, going over the game notes, and then of course, actually getting to sit up there in the press box, watch the game, kind of practice writing mock game stories. We didn't get to go down to the locker room, unfortunately, with him, but after the game, he went down, came back up, and actually had transcribed quotes for us, so we were able to kind of practice what it would be like writing on a pretty tight deadline.
The PJ conference in Boston has provided me with such insightful information that a classroom never could. We spoke with real-life journalists on what they expect out of new applicants. We spoke with keynote speakers such as two real reporters who worked on the case that you see in the Spotlight movie about the priest sexually abusing kids, which was so amazing. They gave me information that I'll have for the rest of my life. We also got a tour of the Boston Globe, which is like one of the best news sites in the country.
Was having a professional theater critic there to tell me how I should watch a play, and then combining that with this being my first time watching a professional play, I was really able to appreciate the art of theater. It just felt amazing to have the actors so close to me, and I think the tickets were also like $10 compared to like $50 or something like that, like a lot more expensive than it really without WPSPJ. So combining that with Ruth Ross, it was really insightful. I really learned about theater and theater criticism, and I'm definitely gonna go to more plays and more shadowing opportunities with WPSPJ.
Night or coming up later on DNL. This is also where we do a lot of our podcasts. So we'll have whoever's coming in to promote a book or promote a
what was missing in their piece and what they needed. Oh, look, there's De Niro right there, and Hillary Clinton, and Ted Cruz. We have two targets of the vixen, and two targets of the woman.
It's an opportunity, really.
Means knowledge.
WPSPJ means family.
Experience these people that you get to meet. You're not going to get that, just attending your Wednesday class. You're gonna get that by going out, talking to people, networking, and that's really the most important thing.
With WPSPJ, you're like, okay, this is how I really go out and get a job.
It's kind of cheesy, but I think we really have a cohesive group here. I've met a lot of great people, connected with a lot of great people, students, professionals, that hopefully I'll be able to keep in touch with over the long run and have a lifelong friendships with.
WPSPJ has given me experiences and connections that I'll use to my advantage for the rest of my life, and it has truly helped solidify my decision on becoming a journalist. We are the Society of Professional Journalists, and one of the most important parts of journalism is information and facts and data.
It's a great networking opportunity for the members of the student chapters to get to know the members of the pro chapters, because the pro chapters are populated by people that are in the business. And there's no better way to get to know people than to belong to the same outfit with the same ideals and the same goals. The other thing is the training. We do offer training that goes above and beyond what's available on a college curriculum.
Awesome video. Thank you, Maria. And now it's time to kick off the New Jersey Journalism Hall of Fame, and I'd like to invite Elizabeth Ogus, the treasurer of our chapter, to introduce our first inductee.
I'm going to acknowledge right now that I was going to be at the end, and I got moved to the beginning, and that's why I chose print, not broadcast. Thank you, Miriam. I'm so honored tonight to be introducing Jonathan Alter, whose brilliant career, even after 40 years and more, is still in its prime. To the students, if you haven't yet seen Breslin and Hamill, Deadline Artists, the recent HBO documentary Jonathan co-produced and co-directed, you must, you really must. Jonathan Alter grew up in Chicago and showed early promise in the field of journalism. As a boy, he reported, wrote, edited, and published his own newspaper. Most of the news was about him. But the practice stood him in good stead as he was writing serious articles for the Chicago Journalism Review before he was out of his teens. He was educated at Harvard and became a household name at Newsweek magazine while still in his 20s. He wrote more than 50 cover stories for Newsweek in his 28 years there as writer, columnist, and editor. He's also a radio host, TV analyst and producer, historian, lecturer, and family man. Jonathan writes regularly for the Daily Beast and has also written for Washington Monthly, where he worked before going to Newsweek, and for the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Atlantic, the New Yorker, Vanity Fair, the New Republic, and Esquire. That list is not comprehensive. His books include The Defining Moment, FDR's 100 Days and the Triumph of Hope, and 2 books on our 44th president, The Promise, President Obama, Year 1, and The Center Holds, Obama and His Enemies. All were New York Times bestsellers. Though he specializes in presidents and politics, he's covered 9 presidential elections, Jonathan's writings encompass the broad range of his interests, including education, fiscal policy, terrorism, anti-Semitism, and national service, and he has also written movingly about his experience with serious illness. His volunteer work reflects that range of interest. He serves on the boards of Donors Choose, which helps school teachers fund their projects, the Blue Card, which helps Holocaust survivors with financial assistance, and the Bone Marrow Foundation. He has also responded to the call from our chapter. On the screen behind me, not yet, are photographs of Jonathan at events that our chapter sponsored at Rutherford Hall in Alamucci Township in 2012. There he is. And at the Montclair Public Library in 2013. And there he is with Loretta Weinberg. You can also see Jonathan on NBC, where he has been appearing since 1996, and on MSNBC. He was an executive producer of Alpha House, a satirical political comedy created by Gary Trudeau that starred John Goodman. I'm leaving a lot out here. He has been a visiting professor at Princeton University, Arizona State University, and Montclair State University. Right now, he's at work on a biography of former President Jimmy Carter. He also keeps busy while spending time with his family on Alter Family Politics, which airs on Radio Andy on Sirius XM. The Alters, who include Jonathan's wife, Emily Lazar, and their children, Charlotte, Tommy, and Molly, have a radio dinner table, and you can listen in as they discuss a wide range of topics, including, of course, politics. Jonathan's work, both reporting and commentary, has been honored many times. He's received recognition by the National Association of Black Journalists, by Women in Communications, and by the New Jersey Council of the Humanities. He has received National Headliner Awards and Medill's John Barlow Martin Award, UCLA's Gerald Loeb Award, and twice was honored with the New York State Bar Association's Media Award. This list of honors is not comprehensive, but I'm thrilled to add to it tonight by naming Jonathan Alter to the inaugural class of the New Jersey Journalism Hall of Fame. Please join me in welcoming Jonathan Alter.
So nice. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was really a generous introduction, and I'm so glad to be here. I'm so honored by this. So my thanks to SPJ, to WPSPJ. I'm thrilled that there are students here who I always learn from when I get a chance to talk to them. And when I was a kid, in addition to putting out my own newspaper, which was all about me, as Elizabeth indicated. The headline was "John Loses 5 Hardballs in the Bushes in One Summer." That would be the kind of story that I would write. But the fact that I was writing about baseball, Cooperstown was always the summit for me. So I feel like I've been inducted in Cooperstown, and it feels good. So I'm grateful to you. In the film about Jimmy Breslin and Pete Hamill, Jimmy Breslin also did a newspaper when he was a kid, and his paper was also largely about himself, and he even put in there that his mother tried to commit suicide. And there's a kind of a sad but somewhat amusing moment in the film where we have Jimmy reading. It's an actor who was reading Jimmy's voice because Jimmy, by that time, was too old, from a book that Jimmy wrote, a memoir. And he says that the article that he wrote about his mother's suicide attempt, the first headline that he put on it was "Mother Tried Suicide." And he was told by somebody who knew something about journalism, no, it should be "Mother Tries Suicide." And I thought that, that commitment to chronicling the world around you that he had, and that other great journalists I've respected over the years and learned from over the years had, is what makes this whole profession or craft, whatever you want to call it, go. That you have to have this great curiosity about the world, and the fact that you can be paid to satisfy that curiosity is still a wonder to me. That you can be paid to learn. When you go to college, you're paying to learn. When you become a journalist, you're getting paid to learn. And even though it's hard sometimes to get paid, especially when the news business is in the transition that it's in today, and it can be frustrating. It's rough out there. The business model hasn't sorted itself out yet. But nonetheless, when you do get work, it's sort of a miracle. When sometimes you sit up and you go, wow, they're paying me to do this, and it's the only thing I know how to do. I mean, I'm not competent to do anything else except pursue my curiosity. And the elements of good journalism are completely unchanged, no matter how the technology changes, and they will always be the same. And as Gloria Steinem says in the film, people have been telling stories since they were living in caves. Narrative storytelling never ends. It never goes out of fashion. It doesn't matter how bad the trends get in the business, the people will always be interested in what's going on in the world and somebody who can tell them that story. And so the reporting, writing, and thinking are eternal. And I think what's also eternal is our responsibilities in a democratic society. So, as I think most of the people here know, William Paterson, the original William Paterson, was one of the founders and one of the authors of the Constitution. And his particular contribution was on the establishment of our judiciary in this country. But he also was there when the First Amendment was written. And the really striking thing to me is that there is no other industry, no other occupation that is mentioned in our Constitution except the press. So that gives us all a sort of larger responsibility. We're not making widgets. We're doing something that is actually important, no matter what kind of story you're covering, because sports are a very important part of our society. So when you're covering sports or medicine or anything, doesn't have to be politics, you're still contributing to the debate that makes our society live. And as the Washington Post now has as its motto, democracy dies in the darkness. So every time we write an article or do a piece on television or even post a blog item or even tweet, we are, if we're doing it right, we are contributing to lighting a candle in that darkness. Sometimes it can be a pretty harsh light. It ain't beanbag. They say politics ain't beanbag. Journalism, when it's good, ain't beanbag either. I think as A.J. Liebling famously said, our real responsibility is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. And too often today, we comfort the already comfortable, write a puff piece about a famous celebrity or something, and we afflict the already afflicted. Maybe we ignore their stories. We don't tell the stories of afflicted people. And we do need to, as a craft or profession, we do need to get back to comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. And sometimes it takes courage to afflict the comfortable. And that can be part of it. It doesn't matter whether it's a politician or the owner of a business or the coach of a team. Sometimes they need to be held to account. And that's what we need to do in this business. So I think I've rattled on a little too long, but I wanted to just thank you again and tell you how honored I am and how much I appreciate what you've done for me today. Thanks very much.
Congratulations, Mr. Alter, on a terrific career. And now I'd like to introduce the treasurer of our William Paterson Society of Professional Journalists, Alex Evans, who will present the first Friend of WPSPJ Award.
Hi, everyone. As Dr. Hirshon mentioned, I am the treasurer for the William Paterson Society of Professional Journalists and also one of its original 11 founding members. Before I begin, I'd just like to once again thank you all for coming tonight and thank Dr. Hirshon and the NJSPJ for making this night a reality. I'm very honored to present our first Friend of WPSPJ Award to John Enslin. I cannot imagine a person more deserving of a Friend of WPSPJ Award than John. John embodies what this award represents to the fullest. He has been incredibly supportive of our chapter from the start and played a major role in making this event happen. Even more valuable, however, is the time he's given to our chapter. During this past fall semester, John volunteered to come to our campus one Saturday in late October to hold a podcasting workshop. Attendees were taught various techniques and tactics for going about creating a podcast, from brainstorming topics and ideas to the actual production side. During the second half of the event, students got to put these skills into action at a William Paterson football game that happened to be in progress. Attendees got to interview fans and capture Nat's sound before going back inside to work with the content they had just collected. We appreciated John's time and his willingness to share his knowledge with us. As an intern with the Bergen Record this past summer, I began consistently listening to John's On the Record podcast. There is his memorable interview with singer Wham McDonald from the television series The Voice, a William Paterson student, I might add. And his discussion this winter with the Record's Yankees beat writer Pete Caldera about the pursuit of free agent Manny Machado. It was clear that John was the perfect person to hold that workshop. I was so happy to learn a few months ago that John had found a job covering politics in Denver. I figured it was only a matter of time before another news outlet would realize how talented he is and swipe him up. So John, I'd just like to thank you again for being a staunch ally of our chapter. Although 4 of the 5 current e-board members of WPSPJ will graduate in less than a month, and you will be stepping down as NJSPJ president soon, I know I can speak for everyone when I say that we're excited for what we hope will be a long and fruitful relationship with NJSPJ and the continued growth of our chapter. So John, thank you for being a friend of WPSPJ. So John is obviously not here. He's in Denver tonight. Unfortunately, he couldn't be with us, so instead he has recorded an acceptance speech that we will now play. And as a podcast producer, John decided to record the speech that is audio only. So here it is, the distinctive voice of John Enslin.
Hi, folks. I am so sorry not to be able to be with you tonight to accept this award. The vagaries of journalism have taken me back to Colorado, where I'm happy to be practicing our craft. So I want to thank you for this award. As you've probably figured out by now, podcasting is a passion for me. I believe it is a part of the future of journalism, and I love teaching people how to do it. So I'm hoping our Podcasting 3.0 workshop was helpful and that the skills you learned that day are being put to good use. I'm also sorry I can't be there tonight for the first ever New Jersey Journalism Hall of Fame, hosted by our William Paterson University student chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists and our New Jersey Pro SPJ chapter. Tonight is the culmination of a lot of work by a lot of people, both on campus and throughout the state. You are going to hear about some extraordinary journalists. My hope is that tonight's event becomes a tradition that will continue for many years to come. Have fun, and I'm expecting to hear a full report. So long.
Okay, so that was the great John Enslin, who you could meet at least via audio. So thank you, John. And now to introduce our second inductee into the New Jersey Journalism Hall of Fame, let me invite to the stage Emily Kratzer, our board secretary.
Good evening. Hang on, I'm short. It's my privilege tonight to speak about Pulitzer Prize winner and best-selling author Anna Quindlen, who grew up in South Brunswick. Quindlen wrote these words in a short guide to a happy life, which sold more than 1 million copies. I'm a novelist. My work is human nature. Real life is really all I know. A graduate of Barnard College, she started her career as a journalist with the New York Post and the New York Times, where she also became deputy metropolitan editor. At the Times and at Newsweek, she wrote columns about the joys and challenges of modern life. Her columns validated family experiences as a topic in the public consciousness, giving readers like me the feeling that they had a companion who understood their private trials, tribulations, and joys. She's written 11 works of nonfiction, 2 children's books, 2 table pictorials, 9 novels, 3 of which were made into movies. One True Thing, her 1994 novel, drew on her time caring for her mother, who died of ovarian cancer when Quindlen was 19. That experience led her to advise us to think of life as a terminal illness. Because if you do, you'll live it with joy and passion as it ought to be lived. One True Thing became the basis for the 1996 movie starring Meryl Streep and Renee Zellweger. Her memoir, Lots of Candles, Plenty of Cake, was published in 2012. She returns to nonfiction with her latest book, Nanaville, Adventures in Grandparenting, available April 23rd from Penguin Random House. Quinlan won a 1992 Pulitzer Prize for Distinguished Commentary. Her public and private columns in the Times were recognized for presenting a wide range of personal and political topics. Her other honors include a Mothers at Home Media Award, 2 Clarion Awards from the Women in Communication, and the Amelia Earhart Award from the Crittenden Women's Union. We could go on with more awards. But remember this, the kudos come because she had always written from the heart, a loving heart, a frustrated heart, a passionate heart. She writes about what she knows and what she cares about, and that has brought her renown. In 2016, she was inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame, and we're honored tonight to put another candle in the Anna Quindlen cake and induct her into the New Jersey Journalism Hall of Fame. In A Short Guide to a Happy Life, Quindlen lists this at the top of her personal resume. I am a good mother to 3 good children. She and her husband, New Jersey attorney Gerald Cravatin, have 3 children, Quindlen, Christopher, and Maria. Maria couldn't be here tonight because she's on a book tour, but she sends her thanks for this honor, and I'll be accepting the award on her behalf, and it is an honor.
Okay. Thank you, Emily. Congratulations to Anna. And now I'd like to introduce the Secretary of the William Paterson Society of Professional Journalists, Juliet Ruiz, to present our second Friend of WPSPJ Award.
Good evening. A lot of work and planning were necessary to make tonight happen, so we are thankful that all of you could come. I've been a member of WPSPJ for almost 2 years, and seeing it grow so much is heartwarming. Of course, our first award ceremony would not have been possible without the constant effort of our advisor, Dr. Nick Hirshon, and the continued support of the William Paterson Communication Department and NJSPJ. I'm here to present the second Friend of WPSPJ Award of the night. As someone who has always been interested in theater, I was delighted when WPSPJ had the opportunity to shadow a theater critic one night last spring. That critic was Ruth Ross, our former English teacher who has reviewed theater in New Jersey for 15 years. We met Ruth at a local diner before a show, and she shared her writing process and techniques on how to write a thorough review. After dinner, we went to Luna Stage Theater Company in West Orange, where we saw a production of The Man in Room 306, a show about the last night of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. before his assassination. That night will always stand out for me because of how enjoyable and educational it was. WPSPJ had the opportunity to shadow Ruth again at Luna Stage just last week. On behalf of WPSPJ, we'd like to thank Ruth for taking her time to give us opportunities such as the one she has given us. It is my pleasure to present Ruth Ross with the Friend of WPSPJ Award. Ruth, thank you for being a friend of WPSPJ. Please come up to accept your award.
I'm not going to talk off the top of my head. I want to thank Dr. Hirshon, the students, and the society for this great honor. I know as you look at me, you think you see a senior citizen, but I'm going to let you in on a secret. There's a 17-year-old high school senior who wants to become a journalist. But in 1959, that was not in the realm of possibility. In fact, my mother said, "You'll get coffee for the bosses." There were no Anna Quindlens, no Maggie Habermans, no Emily Jane Foxes. My only role models were Brenda Starr and Lois Lane, and they were in the comics. And I did work on the school newspaper for 4 years, so I really wanted to do this. But I did what every other smart girl did at the time. I became a teacher. a teacher, a secretary, or a nurse. I became a teacher. I was a teacher of middle and high school English for 34 years. During that time, I found other ways to satisfy my yearning to be a journalist. I taught journalism classes. I advised student yearbooks at 3 schools. We went to the Columbia Scholastic Press Association conference, and we won prizes every year. I became a drama critic for Recorder and World newspapers, and that was 26 years ago. And when the print outlets dried up, I created a blog. It's called the NewJerseyArtsMaven.com. And I post notices about cultural events in northern New Jersey, and I publish my drama reviews, as many and as often as I like. So you see, letting William Paterson University journalism students shadow me as I reviewed a play gave me a chance to be a teacher and a journalist. The students I have met have been bright, engaged, and interested in journalism. I may not have become a real journalist, but I am grateful for the opportunity to help other people to follow their dreams. Thank you again for this great honor.
Thank you, Ruth. You've been doing great work with the students, and I would say you qualify as a real journalist. Okay. For the next person, let me introduce Melanie Andeze, one of our board members. She's going to introduce our next inductee.
I'm honored to make the next induction into the Hall of Fame. You would think that John McPhee's career would have slowed down by now, but today we have come together to celebrate yet another one of his milestones. John is regarded as one of the greatest writers of our time, a pioneer of nonfiction writing, some would say. But his humble beginnings started none other than in the Garden State. John was born in Princeton, New Jersey, where he has lived most of his life. He studied at Princeton High School, as well as Princeton University, where his father was a sports medicine physician. He also studied at Cambridge University. John has written more than 30 books, one of his most recent being The Patch, a collection of nonfiction stories, released in November. His violin has appeared countless times in Time magazine and The New Yorker, and he is currently a Ferris Professor of Journalism at Princeton University, where he teaches a nonfiction writing class every spring. He has done so for nearly 45 years. John's writing career began at Time magazine, which led to his long association with The New Yorker. He has written for the latter since 1965. That is also the year he published his first book, A Sense of Where You Are. His writings have received numerous accolades, most notably in 1999 when he received a Pulitzer Prize for Annals of the Former World. If that weren't impressive enough, he is a 4-time finalist for the Coveted Prize. Last year, he was also the recipient of the Audubon New York Award for Environmental Writing, which recognizes writers who use the power of the pen to influence positive change in the world of environmental conservation. Not only is John an award-winning writer, he is also a respected and sought-after educator. A 1954 Princeton graduate, John returned to his alma mater in 1974. In an interview with Ed Surge, conducted by one of his former students nonetheless, John said his return to the institution was by accident. A month before classes were set to begin, the professor who was supposed to teach the class quit. Saying yes to the job, he said, was instinct. As an educator, John has taught some of the journalism's most famous writers, including David Remnick, editor of The New Yorker. John's class is one of the most popular at Princeton. One professor, quoted in the Daily Princetonian, said, "Professor McPhee's course is a national treasure and has helped launch the careers of some of our nation's finest writers. More importantly, John is a kind and giving person and a generous mentor." There's much to be said about John and his established career. In 1974, he taught his first class at Princeton. In 1999, he won his first Pulitzer. And today, in 2019, we are here to celebrate his induction into New Jersey's first Journalism Hall of Fame. So his hopes won't ever forget all that he's done to move journalism forward. Congratulations, John. Tonight I accept his distinction in his honor.
Congratulations to John, a fellow journalism educator. And now to present our final Friend of WPSPJ award, I'd like to introduce the Vice President of our chapter, John Fiorino.
Good evening, everyone.
I want to thank you all for coming tonight. This event means a lot to us, and we've been planning it for many, many months, and I was honored to be selected as a founding member of this wonderful organization that's doing so much for the journalism students that will follow us. I always stress that it is not about us, but it's about the students that will follow and the club in the years to come. One person who has been with this club since the very beginning is Dennis Gorman. Dennis is a freelance sports journalist, and his work throughout the years can be found in various outlets like the Washington Post, Business Insider, and the Associated Press. In November of 2017, Dennis arranged for WPSPJ members to shadow him at a New Jersey Devils hockey game at the Prudential Center in Newark. If you know me, you know that I'm a huge hockey fan, so this was an opportunity of a lifetime. Not only were we able to watch and report the game from the press box, but we had behind-the-scenes access to the game as well. We prepared our game notes with Dennis's guidance, mingled with other professional journalists, and attended the post-game interview with head coach John Hines. Soon after the post-game interview, we took quotes and made mock stories alongside Dennis. He then checked to see if we got the main aspects of the game and how we incorporate it into the stories. The critiques were more than just what you might hear in a classroom. This was a professional in the field critiquing us while we were in the field. Dennis has consistently been there for our chapter. He's also spoke in this very room as part of our Hobart Reality Check discussion series with Dr. Hirshon. Dennis, not only have you been a contributor to the growth of this club, but you've been our actual friend. It is so rare that journalism students experience a professional journalist environment before graduation, and you provided us with that. It is our honor to call you a friend of WPSPJ. Dennis, please come up to accept your reward.
Sorry, I'm a little tall. Oh, okay, that works. Ladies, gentlemen, faculty, students, honored guests, thank you for being here tonight, where we celebrate the past, present, and future of journalism. And I feel a need in my heart to speak about the future of journalism after receiving this award. Ours is an industry that is facing challenges internal and external. Corporately owned outlets are slashing jobs in the name of profit margins. The immediacy of the internet and social media platforms have transformed outlets into around-the-clock multimedia content producers. We have elected leaders who decry what we do as, quote, fake news, unquote, in response to critical stories. It does all seem bleak. I'm here to tell you that it's not, because I've been privileged to see the future of journalism firsthand. Many of them are in this room. Many are members of the William Paterson University chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists. I am fortunate enough to call them friends, and I'm grateful that they view me as a friend to the program. I have to be honest, it is an odd feeling to be up here accepting this award because I don't think I did anything special. I had spoken with Professor Nick Hirshon in October 2017 about his excitement for the students in this chapter. He spoke about their willingness to learn, to ask questions, to want to improve, to want to work. And he mentioned his desire for them to experience a day in the life of a working reporter. And his words brought me back to when I was in college, when I would have given anything to be able to see firsthand what a working journalist does on a daily basis. So our conversation spawned a few emails to the National Hockey League's New Jersey Devils, and to their immense credit, allowed members of the chapter and Professor Hirshon to join me at a game against the Florida Panthers. Sitting with Professor Hirshon were Ryan Doyle, who's not here tonight, Alex Evans and John Fiorino, who are here, and Jack Loneker. Their enthusiasm was noticeable immediately. They were excited to learn. They wanted to experience everything the working reporters inside the Prudential Center on that night were going to experience. And I think they did. They did their background research. They wrote on deadline. They asked questions of people involved in the game. Simply, they were journalists, and they were damn good journalists. Where it still are, and hopefully will be in the future. So while our industry has very real challenges facing it, the members of the William Paterson chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists leave me feeling optimistic about the future of journalism in the United States. To them, I say thank you for this award. And I also want to leave them with one final thought. There are people who will tell you what we do is irrelevant. It is not. These people are wrong. They are acting in bad faith. An ill-informed society is one that cannot stand. That what we do is changing is obvious, and do take the time to learn how to shoot video, how to do stand-ups, how to host a podcast, to shoot photos, to use social media, to maximize the various tools journalists have available to better tell a story. But remember the fundamentals and lessons learned in the classrooms and inside the beacon, and inside the radio station and the television station, and at newsrooms you have interned at and are now working for. Be able to do your job. Because what you do is important. What we do is important. And please keep the enthusiasm you have for what we do. Enthusiasm plus your skills plus your work ethic will take you to places you only dreamed about. And much like accepting this award, it will be my privilege to watch your careers blossom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. What you've done for the students here is great. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's the kind of experience that you offered them is something that most people, when they're in college, just only dreamed of. They didn't have that kind of opportunity. So we're back to the New Jersey Journalism Hall of Fame, and now I'd like to introduce Jane Primorano, the Regional Director of the Northeast Region.
Thank you, Miriam. And ever the editor, I have to add something to what Nick said, because what Nick didn't tell you is he wrote the copy for the plaque that made the Union Hotel the first National Historic Site in journalism in the state of New Jersey. There will be more, but we felt that one had to be first. Ben, thank you for this opportunity. This is something that means a lot to me, and I don't know if I'm going to get through it without getting a little weepy. In the days when women were relegated to the women's page, if they were hired at all, Edith Shapiro became the first female hire at the Newark Evening News to be formally assigned as a reporter on the news desk. Women had worked in hard news during World War II, but not formally hired for that purpose. That venerable male-dominated paper was known for asking women if they minded rescuing the occasional copy editor from the neighborhood bar, but not for sending them to the courthouse or the cop shop. Edie was a pioneer in many ways. As you will soon hear from the broadcast at the opening of WNET, she wrote for Edward R. Murrow. As a new graduate of the Columbia Journalism School, she joined Murrow's staff as a secretary and then worked on the CBS Evening News with Douglas Edwards. She also wrote for Margaret Mead and asked Bob, her son, how that impressed him. She would probably feel a little torn by this honor. It galled her forever that fraternity, Sigma Delta Chi, didn't admit women, even into the 1970s. So she turned to the National Federation of Presswomen as an early member of New Jersey Presswomen. NFPW is different from SPJ in the sense that it welcomes members from the dark side. Public relations, advertising, and marketing professionals, as well as book authors, belong to the various chapters, making for a different sort of camaraderie, but a valuable one. Edie always let you know that she was a professional journalist, however. When she served as president of NJPW, she presented many programs strictly for journalists and journalists in training. She was the inspiration behind Adopt an Advisor, a state program that soon went national. Journalist members of NJPW not only went into high school classes to talk to the students, they adopted the school newspaper advisor for the year. Members were assigned to schools close to where they lived or worked. The program was quite successful for years. In addition to that, Edie spurred the group's participation in the Garden State Scholastic Press Association's Fall Student Press Day. A number of members did presentations for many years. In the waning days of NJPW, our New Jersey Pro Chapter of SPJ took over and still sends professionals to participate in Press Day. Every time the members of our chapter assist with Press Day, we are honoring Edie. Edie and her fellow founders of NJPW, including Joe Bonomo, Cornelia Bowe, Audrey Fecht, Rita Quaid, Mary Higgins Clark, Ruth Winter, and many others, including Tina Lesher, who taught here, promoted book events which continuously made money for the chapter, keeping it alive long after many others found themselves in financial trouble. Edie never really retired, not as long as there was a Jewish newspaper to edit, even after the Shapiros retired to upstate New York. It is my privilege tonight to induct Edith Shapiro into the New Jersey Journalism Hall of Fame. Accepting the honor is her son, Bob Shapiro.
A medium height. Thank you, Jane. You know, when I was little, I thought that everyone's mother doing their errands would go to the grocery store and then to the linotype guy and then to the printer, because everyone's mom did that, right? I soon learned that Mom was a journalist. What I didn't realize at the time is she was pioneering a career as an independent journalist, a working mom in the 1960s. That was not easy. There were some barriers to that we're still addressing today. When my mother was first nominated for the Hall of Fame, Jane and I discussed whether she would have accepted it. I believe the program tells you that she was twice refused membership in SPJ. The first time was in the 1950s when she was editor of the Newark News, which was then New Jersey's largest newspaper. And that was because she was a woman and she kind of sort of understood. But the second time, in 1972, SPJ decided she wasn't a journalist, that the kind of things she did, and that many of the other women whose names Jane read also did, that those sort of things don't add up to being a journalist. They were more sort of the ladies who lunch. In my mother's case, in that same year, 1972, she wrote articles that were published around the world, including on the front page of the Times of London. She dealt with news editors, not features editors, and she had to be sharper than a lot of people who had full-time jobs. But what SPJ was really talking about was things like writing for the Montclair Times. Back then, the paper ran a column about every public school every week, written all year by the same parent. Well, my mother had 3 different kids in 3 different Montclair public schools, so she wrote 3 columns a week. And it was real news. My class was the first one bused for racial integration. There were issues such as mainstreaming. My mother would go to obscure budget hearings. For my mother, what separated a journalist in that job from other people in that job was not a degree of skill, but a particular faith. She was against putting public relations in a newspaper, what she called boosterism. She never said public relations, boosterism or blowing sunshine, because she said boosterism never helped anyone, not in news. She became a journalist, I learned much later, because as a girl in the 1930s, she had pen pals in Eastern Europe and corresponded with her cousins. She wanted to meet after high school. And she said they were not informed about what was happening and about what was coming because they did not have a free press that could criticize, and they just weren't prepared. Boosterism, like she said, never helped anyone. And when she later got her degree from Douglas College, the New Jersey College for Women, her thesis as a historian was that Hitler did not go after the Jews first, he went after the journalists first. She felt that being a journalist is to have faith that people will do the right thing most of the time if they have true and accurate information. She said, if you don't have that faith, you're just going to burn out quickly. So being a journalist, a good journalist, is nothing short of trying to save the world or your community. There were many women like my mother on whom the economy depended, on whom communities depended, still depend, really, for information, yet who are delegitimated with barriers thrown in front of them. Our neighbor across the street, Mrs. Nitzer, started what was called a newsletter covering Upper Montclair. Yet the town tried to shut her down for operating what they called a home-based business because people, would park in front of her house. We lived across the street. We never had any problem with it. My mom really went to bat for her. One reason was she asked how women who had children were going to get their careers back on track if they couldn't work out of their homes. These were the barriers that her generation confronted. She was a ghostwriter, writer for people like Edward R. Murrow, Margaret Mead, and others. I once asked how much of the CBS Evening News, it was 15 minutes at the time, would you write? And she said, well, sometimes the whole thing. They would give her notes. She was a secretary, and she would write the script. She never minded that. She loved that famous people said what she wrote. She was also never into being the first woman to do something. She would say, Robert, like it was so easy, I'm sure, for the second woman. And you be the judge of this. She told me how when she was the first woman to be an editor at the Newark News, she was editor of the woman's page, as Jane said. And she told her bosses that there should not be a woman's page, that newspapers should not tell their readers that topics such as food and childcare are to be directed solely at women. So they listened to her. They eliminated the woman's page, and with it, they eliminated her editorship. They took away her stipend, her name off the masthead. I thought that was totally unfair, and she smiled. She said, no, that was a huge victory for her. That was a lasting accomplishment. Another lasting accomplishment was her part not only in getting Channel 13 on the air as a public television station, but keeping its license in New Jersey. Well, the New Jersey part really was very much from my mother's efforts, and that led to all of New York's VHF stations, 2, 4, 7, 11. They all now had to make some commitment to New Jersey coverage, and to this day, that's why they have to have a New Jersey correspondent. We have a clip. I'll be back for a couple seconds after the clip of Edward R. Murrow on that night where he says some words that are his, the quotes from Cicero and all of that, and some words written by my mother, what my mother called the birth of a great adventure, the challenge of the untried. So let's roll the clip.
Good evening. I'm Ed Murrow, and this is Channel 13, WNDT, something rather different. But in the words of Dylan Thomas, to begin at the beginning, this is educational television. It is 9 years old, quite young in the annals of education. But then television itself is but new come to being. This afternoon, there were 67 stations in the country. Tonight, this becomes the 68th. Tonight, you join me in being present at the birth of a great adventure. This station has been almost 2 years in gestation. It is capable of reaching a total audience of 15 million curious minds, stretching from the north of Connecticut to the south of New Jersey. If it does not spring full-grown to life, as did the mythical Athena from the head of Zeus, it is at least born with the excitement of the creative, the promise of the new found, the challenge of the untried.
The challenge of the untried. My mother created big, enormous projects. She had no idea how they would be funded. She started a print newspaper in the mid-1990s. That took a lot of faith. I want to acknowledge my family over there. Our mother, for her, optimism about people, well-informed people, was absolutely central to being a journalist. And she would want to be in the Hall of Fame on behalf, if it is on behalf of all of the other New Jersey presswomen, including Joe Bonomo, Cornelia Bowe, Audrey Fecht, Rita Quaid, Mary Higgins Clark, Ruth Winter, Jane Primerano, and Barbara Reed, who also our past president, who tried to join SPJ in the 1970s and was turned down. As for my mother, I think she deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Hi, Mom. She deserves to be in the Hall of Fame just for keeping the faith. Thank you.
So that was Bob. Thank you, Bob. One thing I want to tell everyone is Bob inaugurated within our chapter an award called Courage Under Fire. And I think, Bob, you'll agree with this, that it's very much also inspired by your mom. And even though, actually, I never met Edie. I think we all sort of feel the Edie aura within our chapter. I think that's really true. Anyway, next. Here's David Levitt. He's going to introduce our next and our final inductee.
Hi.
Oh, thank you. Before I get started, I just wanted to say that the William Paterson University SPJ chapter, you should give it up for them, because this is, to have an event like this and to see how that chapter has grown, has been as a board member of SPJ in New Jersey and a former president, has just been a phenomenal thing. I think you guys really put the other chapters, the other universities in New Jersey to shame. I think you guys do an amazing job. And I just want to say that a couple of weeks ago, I had the pleasure of being in Boston for the New Jersey Regional, the SPJ Region 1 conference. And I would have to say there were, I almost fear saying this, because you guys are so good, you probably know the truth. But it felt like that there were more William Paterson chapter members there than there were Northeastern chapter members there. This was in Boston. And this was at Northeastern University. So if you guys did manage to beat out Northwestern in terms of I'm Northeastern. I went to Northwestern. Northeastern in terms of the number of people who actually attended the conference, it's quite well, I was going to say it's quite an honor, but it's just another. It's Friday or Tuesday or Saturday for you guys. It's just what you do, Anyway. So I'm here to introduce, to honor the late Gabe Pressman. And the reason I was chosen for his honor is that 13 years ago, I was the chairman of the SPJ Region 1 conference. I was the president of the New Jersey chapter. And the guest of honor that evening was none other than Mr. Pressman. I had the honor of introducing him, and only about 15 minutes before he was supposed to go on, he hadn't shown yet. It was 2006, which was a weird moment in the development of social media. Facebook had been invented only a few years prior and was not, common. It wasn't in everybody's pocket or on everybody's laptop, but yet, and there were no smartphones yet, or for at least I didn't have one. Apparently, the directions that I had given to his driver weren't quite adequate, and so the venue, which was the Newark campus of Rutgers, was proving hard to find. Fortunately, this was Gabe Pressman, who we were honoring, and using his cell phone, he worked his sources, which reached deep into every police department in the New York area, to find the venue, and he arrived about 10 minutes before he was scheduled to speak. As I recall, he had some choice words from me that weren't very nice, but and it's probably a good thing I don't remember them. And the reason this Bronx native is part of the charter class of the New Jersey Journalism Hall of Fame is that his first job out of Columbia Graduate Journalism School was as a reporter for the Newark Evening News. From there, he went on to the Overseas News Agency, where he covered the 1949 trial of Hungarian Cardinal Midzensky, whose crime was not paying enough tribute to Stalin. Of course, everybody, including me, knows him as the face of News 4 New York. the rumpled raincoat that chased after makers for generations, stretching from the Angela Doria to the Beatles to Woodstock to Watergate to 9/11, and interviewing remarkable people from Marilyn Monroe and Casey Stengel to Barack Obama. As a generational leader, he did away with the antiseptic neutrality of his competitors and instead adopted a passionate, aggressive, pro-viewer, pro-people stance. And he was a pioneer, leading us from the rip and read realities of early TV news to the era in which TV reporters were expected to produce their own stories. He fought hard against the anti-media, anti-access habits of the Giuliani administration, saying the mayor had adopted the characteristics of a police state. And though he lived until 93, he never retired. He covered the 2017 St. Patrick's Day parade just 2 months before he died. To me and to an entire generation of future journalists and non-journalists alike, he was what a newsperson looked like, along with Hamill and Breslin and just a handful of others, inspired an entire generation of news people, me included. And I was saying to Mrs. Pressman as I was driving her here tonight that, I don't want to say that that he was a conscious inspiration, but inside my head, as I practiced journalism and demanded of government officials documents and things and access. There's a voice inside your head saying you got to do this, and one of those voices, a part of that voice is Gabe Pressman. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Pressman's widow, Vera, to accept this honor on his behalf.
I'm bringing help with me because I wasn't prepared to. John Esselin didn't tell me I was going to speak. I thank you. This is our son, my son. This is my son, Michael. And I brought Inara, who was Gabe's producer for many, many, many years and a very vital part of his, I guess, later career, 20 years or so. Gabe was always late. So it was fitting that we were late today, I think. Mayor Wagner of the city drove the press corps crazy because he never started a press conference without Gabe being there. And since Gabe was always late, they all got very upset with the mayor. So lateness is a thing in the Pressman family, I think. I want to thank you very much. Gabe would be very, very honored, and I'm sorry he can't speak. He would have given you a wonderful, wonderful talk. But I know this is a very special gift, and I thank you very much. Michael, do you want to say anything?
Just one thing. Even though there were, concerns about difficulties in the profession and whatnot, he always did have optimism, and I believe somebody a bit earlier spoke about why he was optimistic. And my dad always took such pride in the interns that he had, college students, and was just very optimistic about the profession, largely because of his interactions with up-and-coming students who were hoping and planning to be journalists.
Inara de Leon.
My name's Inara de Leon, and I was Gabe's producer for 15 years. I'm going to make this short because I wasn't anticipating speaking either, but I was very very impressed at how many of the points that Jonathan Alter made really reverberated in the way that Gabe conducted his career. He was very dedicated. He felt he was doing very good work, and that it was very important to shine a light in the darkness. The other thing that is notable is that he also had a newspaper as a child growing up, but he would report on his cousin having a tooth that fell out, or grandma made sponge cake with real sponges. And the other thing I want to say is that he did have a relationship with New Jersey, even though he was very identified with New York. And part of that I was able to experience. We did voice of the voter type pieces, which were basically going into the communities, talking to people during the lead up to elections, and finding out what was really on their minds. One notable thing, one notable place we went to was Bruce Springsteen's birthplace, and we had a great time there, and we also went into Hunterdon County. We went all over New Jersey to find out what people were concerned about during presidential and gubernatorial and Senate races. And he did tell me that he has a particular soft spot in New Jersey, because he was, I believe, Vera, he was arrested in New Jersey, his only arrest, and it had to do with him wanting to cover something. And some police officer was not allowing him to cover that thing, and he was taken away, apparently. And then didn't he?
He appealed, appealed.
The
Supreme Court.
Yeah, right.
He lost.
So that's his. We miss him terribly. He would be so honored to see you all here and to have gotten this award. We just, can't say how much we miss him. Thank you.
Congratulations to the Pressman family. Miss Pressman, I grew up watching your husband on NBC, and I had the pleasure of interviewing him for my research several years ago. I also watched him perform on stage many times alongside other members of the New York City Hall Press Corps at the Inner Circle show. When I was a reporter at the Daily News, he is truly deserving of this honor. And now I'd like to welcome our last student of the evening, Olivia Beale, who is the president-elect of our William Paterson Society of Professional Journalists.
Hello, everyone. My name is Olivia Beale, as you just heard. I'm very happy to have been elected the next president of the William Paterson Society of Professional Journalists for the 2019-2020 academic year. I'd like to congratulate all the award winners tonight and the inductees into the New Jersey Journalism Hall of Fame. It's such an honor to be here with all you amazing journalists and their families. I'd like to give a huge thank you to the current WPSPJ e-board and Dr. Hirshon for making this ceremony possible. Since the organization was founded, they've provided so many exciting opportunities for the students at this university. William Paterson students have gotten advice from professionals right on this campus, shadowed reporters out in the field, toured studios and news stations, and joined seasoned journalists for conferences. These out-of-the-classroom events take students' college experiences to a whole new level. They laid down the groundwork for students to become not only successful journalism majors, but also successful student journalists. I hope to continue creating new and meaningful experiences for students. Next year, I want to collaborate with other campus organizations to expand our reach. I hope that connecting the field of journalism to others helps as many students as possible grow their connections and build their careers. Right now, I'd like to auction off some special items. All the money we raise from this auction will go directly to helping our chapter continue to run our many educational events. So please be generous. First, we're going to auction off a book signed by PBS NewsHour anchor Judy Woodruff when she visited our campus in December. I'll begin the bidding at $20. Does anyone want this great item for $20? $20? Anything higher? 25? $30. 30? Okay. 30 once, twice, 40? Okay, 40 going once.
No, I do
twice.
45.
$50. Okay, anyone's going higher? 50? Once, twice. Sold for $50. Okay, next we're going to auction off the New York Times Book of Politics. It's signed by former New York Times editorial page editor Andrew Rosenthal when he visited our campus last month. Again, this is going to start at $20. $20, okay. Anything higher? 25? 30? Did I hear 30?
No, I said to go. If not, you go back down to 25.
So, 25? 25?
Going once.
Going once? Okay, sold for 25. I see. Who is the book for 25? Oh, okay. I promise this next one won't be as awkward. So our last item is actually a package, very special. Earlier this semester, we had a discussion in the Martini Room with Ariel Hwani and Eric Jackman, who cover mixed martial arts for ESPN. And so we have these gloves signed by Ariel Hwani and Eric Jackman. We have a sticker signed by Ariel Hwani and a t-shirt. And we're going to start at $30 for these. $30, come on, it's great. Anyone? No one wants it for 30? Come on, no pressure.
Dr. Peck said
$30? Okay, going once, twice. Sold for $30. Okay, thank you, everybody. I now welcome all members of the WPSPJ e-board and regular members to come up and celebrate this terrific night and unveil the plaque for the New Jersey Hall of Fame.
Yep, so Jonathan Alter, John McPhee, Gabe Pressman, Anna Quinlan, and Edith Shapiro.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming out. Have a good night.